Our distinguished guests, welcome to the second day of our Women and Justice Summit. After the opening ceremony and plenary session yesterday, we will discuss more on women and cultural codes today with academics, activists, entrepreneurs, artists, and experts from the field. So today's session's first topic is women as a subject. And I kindly invite the moderator and distinguished speakers of this panel. Executive Board Member of KADEM, Dr. Nursem Keskin Aksay, will moderate this summit session. And I kindly invite Fatma Gaylani, Dr. Nesrim Kırcı-Çirci, and Dr. Sherifa Nouman El-Amadi. The floor is yours, Dr. Nursem.
Okay, good morning. Actually, firstly, I want to share with you that we are very honored and it's our pleasure to welcome you all here because this session and this whole summit has a special importance for the whole executive board because we have been spending so much time to discuss all the cultural codes and the issue of culture, which is a sensitive and deep issue to discuss the women's rights That's why today we will have so many valuable speakers to tackle the question of cultural codes and within it the women as subjects, the women as agents, having agency. That's why as I said, we are very excited and very pleased to have this session with these valuable speakers today. In the main discussions we had, we were always having challenges to discuss that culture is a very embedded and very embodied kind of issue for the whole people. They are we are even experiencing in our daily life, but we are sometimes not thinking that sometimes the culture has some normative issues, and to discuss these normative issues will be very hard. And that's why today, firstly, I have Fatma Gaylani to tackle the question in an activist standpoint, And then we have other speakers, but I want to firstly explain that Fatma Gaylani is here because she has been working in the fieldwork as an activist for a long time, but also she contributed so much to the policy making in a long time. And she is one of the, as only woman negotiator in Afghanistan to talk about women's rights in constitution. And she has been always in civil society to work on women's rights as an activist. And apart from this, we have Dr. Tasnim Kırcı-Çirci, who is my colleague in Ibn Haldun University, and she's also a co-founder of Jasmine Foundation in Tunisia. And at the same time, she has been working academically and civil society-based, on society issues in different perspectives. And she's also teaching about these issues in our university, at the same time still managing the Jasmine Foundation itself. And we have, at the same time today, sorry, I have to reach my data as well at the same time. Sorry for this. Okay. And we have, at the same time, today, Dr. Sherifa Nouman El-Amadi, which is another disciplinary perspective because she is a doctor of counseling psychology and expertise on family counseling, and at the same time, working on the balance between the family and society within the social transformation, actually. She's also the executive director of Doha International Family Institute. After working on family counseling for a long time, currently she is also working on behavioral disorders and especially on drug addictions, actually. And at the same time, she has different alternative academic approaches and conceptualization in civil society. I am welcoming all of them, and I want to begin like general questions, but specific questions for each speakers, and we will be doing it in an interactive way. And maybe I have to announce that we will be having questions, and we will be happy to have them, but it will be in a written format. And from now on, you can also collect your questions and convey them to our whole workers and assistants, and they will bring us the questions, and we will be also discussing them. Okay, I mean, as I said, this main discussion of this session was understanding the main cultural code in society, which is valuable for the people, local people. But at the same time, maybe there are different hidden norms that, hidden hegemonic kind of effects in the societies that maybe giving, like creating borders, constructing borders for women, or for families within, in a kind of injustice or in a cool way. That's why this is a sensitive issue in this way, because we are already in culture, we are embedded with it, we are valuing our culture, but at the same time we have to speak about the borders. And this will be the main question, but I want to begin with Fatima Gailani to discuss Afghanistan through her experiences, because actually, I am also like giving so many Afghanistan examples when we are discussing about women issues. Why? Because as we witness, Afghanistan has been a very critical place to discuss the agency of women with international interventions. And we know that the US intervention was justified very much with the idea that we will be giving the agency to the woman. And there are so many academic and activist and civil society-based discussion about this issue, but we are, like, unfortunately not hearing about the local experience itself. That's why I'm very happy that we have you here to have a deeper understanding of Afghanistan. That's why I want to ask, as an activist, knowing the local understandings and as a critical person for policy making, for women especially, in Taliban regime, and also like establishment of constitution. What do you, again, how you can evaluate the agency of women in Afghanistan and the effects of different cultural codes on their like rights through your work and through your experience? Please, it's yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, it's an honor to be here. I made sure that I come here because the support of sisters from the Muslim world is especially very important for Afghan women. I thank KADEM for inviting me and thinking about me. Before, I just want to give you a little background about Afghan women, and especially for you, the people from Turkey. It's important to know that you played a very important role in the life of Afghan women 101 years ago. When we talk about Afghan women, all we see is misery that happened in the last 44 years. I am a product of the time of pre-war. 101 years ago, the first women came to have further studies in Turkey from Afghanistan. Who would have thought that 101 years ago? I confess only to you because it's only women here. In 2 months' time, I will be 69. I was only 8 years old when the first women became ministers. When I saw women in the cabinet, when I saw this excitement in the eye of my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, I knew it is important. As a child, I didn't know why was it important, but I knew it is important. It was 61 years ago that men and women in Afghanistan, they had the right to vote or to be elected. If you look in Afghanistan today, it is hard to believe. When women were voting in Afghanistan, in Switzerland, women couldn't vote. Many other European countries couldn't vote. When we had female ministers, female senators, and female members of the parliament, many European countries couldn't even imagine it. What happened? What happened? Today, women in Afghanistan, we are struggling for a secondary school education, for God's sake. Same people, same country. It is the war. When we talk about culture, how much our culture has been used by politicians, but by outsiders to go against people, and especially against women. If we talk about Queen Soraya, many women were called Soraya in this country because of her visit here or in Iran. But the meaningful changes which came for women in Afghanistan, it was really during His Majesty King Zahir Shah, because he knew the importance of religion in our society. He knew the importance of having any changes according to the belief of people, to be accepted by our religious leader and be accepted by a majority of people. Even in Afghanistan, or country like Afghanistan, even if you are not a scholar in religion, but you are a believer, very strong believer in your religion. So it is important for changes that you have support. Afghanistan doesn't have one face anymore. Afghanistan of wars, Afghanistan of women's issue. Is this the same Afghanistan that people only 44 years ago, when I was a young woman, were coming as a tourist to see our historical sites? Is this the same Afghanistan that our neighbors like Pakistan and Iran used to come to do their shopping? They used to make their clothes in Afghanistan. Is this the same Afghanistan? It is not. Why? Because Afghanistan was a victim of the Cold War. Afghanistan was caught in a war which had nothing to do with Afghanistan. A superpower of the time invaded Afghanistan. We rightly stood up. I am honored to be one of their spokesperson in the Western world to talk about what is happening. Haven't we forgotten that 2 million people died because of the Soviet invasion? So quickly we forget, because so many other things came out. All the ugly wars in Afghanistan is one side, but the civil war, the ugliness, the terrible, shameful face of a civil war, when brother kills brother, sister kills sister, on linguistic issues, on madhahib, the sects of Islam, on the languages we talk, on the looks we have. Yes, and Afghanistan has this beautiful mosaic of the Pashtuns, the Tajiks, the Uzbeks, the Hazaras, the Turkmens, all of them. This is the beauty of Afghanistan. Now, let's tackle that what should be done, because I refuse to be pessimistic. 44 years, I was chasing the peace, and before I die, this is a promise that I have made to myself, that I want to see the peace. Just one last thing. Afghanistan is expert in losing opportunities. We usually put the blame on the outsiders, but we are to blame too. And the last one was in Doha. The Doha talk could have succeeded if it wasn't for the wrong place that ex-President Ghani did and all of a sudden disappear, and also as if everyone was numb, as if they couldn't believe that something will happen. This was a missed opportunity. We cannot afford another missed opportunity. Today, whether the Taliban we like or we don't like, the country is in one hand, and the Taliban have the responsibility of the national talk, and we have to start. By the way, I was not the only woman in the negotiation team. I was one of the 4 women in 21 people.
This is an important knowledge, but I think you were the most effective one, that we were always like hearing your, let's say, contributions more and more. Thank you very much, because it was very interesting to discuss the, as you like call it, different faces of Afghanistan. Because, as you know, through media or knowledge-based kind of constructions or through representations, we hear different Afghanistans. But the faces of Afghanistan show us like how to engage with Afghanistan and develop certain ways to like create certain places for women to be in the civil society and work for it. And you were also very, let's say, deeply engaged with the problems, or you were saying that we were experts to losing the opportunities, for example. I think this is very much important for us to discuss that. Okay, we are in our culture, we are in our system, but try to productively criticize the system and want to go with it. That's why maybe I will, let's say, convey the question to the to Dr. Kirshi about Jasmine Foundation. Tasnim Hocam, could you please tell us about Jasmine Foundation in relation to the role of women for an inclusive society, for example, and I mean how you were also, let's say, working on women's rights in Tunisia, which is politically have a different actually context, and through this all main questions we have about cultural codes and borders, what you can say about Jasmine Foundation, please.
Thank you, Nursam. So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Günaydin. I'm happy to be here with you today. So, thanks to KADEM for organizing this summit, the 6th summit. So, I'm happy to be taking part in it this year. As Nursam mentioned, I'm the founder of the Jasmine Foundation. The Jasmine Foundation is what I call a think and do tank. I would not have been able to talk about this today or be with you here today if in Tunisia we did not have a special story about us. You know, Tunisia was always credited in the region as being a progressive country when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to, women equality. So the story goes that Tunisia was one of the first Arab countries that had what we called an enlightened dictator, although it's very hard to believe that there are enlightened dictators, who believed that modernity and modernization were mainly and went through 2 important pillars. So the first pillar was women's rights, and the second pillar was the secularism. So these 2 pillars were the main pillars of the Tunisian state, which made it, stand out in the region. However, I am a Tunisian woman, and I can tell you that what this meant actually is that instead of basing, these new rights on the basis of the existing, movements for women equality that were trying to, bring an understanding of human rights coupled with women's rights and not separate both. This state-led feminism was basically focused on women's rights detached of anything else. So women had the right to not wear hijab. Modernization were understood as completely living tradition and traditional codes outside of the public realm. and, you know, imposed actually on women a certain way of looking, a certain way of being, and also certain types of rights. Because if you wanted actually to ask for social, economic rights, if you wanted to ask for rights to choose those who represent you, if you asked for women who represent you in decision-making spheres, then you didn't have the right to those. So actually I can tell you that, you know, behind the facade of, you know, openness and progressivism, you know, I am, and many other women are the story of the fact that the only equality we got is the equality in being repressed. The equality of being tortured if you dare to ask for democracy. The equality of being tortured. So we had as many, we pride ourselves in having as many defendants of human rights in Tunisia that are women as much as we have men. Why was that possible? Because we had antecedents, actually, of women's rights movements who understood Islam in a progressive way, who understood that women actually, you know, can have rights that are in symbiosis with cultural codes. We needed absolutely to, you know, help our societies progress and get rid of the old traditions that prevented women from achieving their potential. But that's completely possible with the culture of human rights that we were able to build on Islamic rights, as a human being being dignified, as being created equal in rights and equal in, before justice. So this idea of justice, there was already a movement in Tunisia, a feminine-led, with many doctors, with many professors, before the independence itself. And even the idea of, you know, polygamy was the first thing to be, you know, eliminated with the new personal code, you know, proposed by and imposed by the first president after the independence. So that personal code, you know, people presented and was presented as a product of modernity. But if you dig deeper, you find that behind the modernistic rhetoric, there was a lot of ijtihad, Islamic ijtihad behind it. Tunisia is actually one of the first countries where we already had many regions and many women could impose what we call the Kairawani, you know, contract for marriage, where women could impose not being, you know, that their husband don't marry other women when they are married. So this was widespread in Tunisia even 2 centuries before the modernization of Tunisia. So Tunisia had antecedents of women movements who campaigned, who worked for the generalization of the education of girls. We had the first, actually Tunisia is one of the first Arab countries to have an association for defense. It's called the Muslim Women. So all of this was curtailed with this new, you know, cultural codes imposed by modernity and modernization. The reason for that is that this modernity was, you know, very much linked to colonization. And the new elites understood modernization as equivalent with being, you know, with accepting without any kind of criticism the French culture and French ideals, and accepting that, you know, we have to model our rights, we have to model our laws on the French example. So we actually have, with Tunisia, we joke, usually we say that we had, when it comes to choosing different types of imperialisms and different kind of secularisms, we had the worst one, because it's the Francophone one that believes that, you know, secularity and secularism is actually eliminating traditions, eliminating religion completely from the public space, and this is until today a real problem. So, of course, the reality of those antecedents were the basis for the continuation of, you know, faith-based women's rights movements who continue to exist. You know, the power structures continue to ignore them and fill prisons with them. And the opening of the possibility of democratization in Tunisia, to make the long story short, in 2010, 2011, made possible these experiences to rise and to, come to the surface. Those women who were, shared the equality of being imprisoned and the equality of being tortured, their stories came to the fore of the public scene. So it has become possible to heal society. It has become possible to find a plurality of women movements, which is the reality of women everywhere. Women come in different, shapes and come in different colors, and they are diverse. In any case, imposing one model and one type of cultural, code on them is actually what is contested here. Nobody contests women's rights. What we want, we always say that we want to enter modernity whole. We don't want to shed our, civilizations and then enter modernity. Yeah. We want to be modern, but we want a path that we decide for ourselves. So the Jasmine Foundation, actually, it has become possible to, have organizations of civil society, because democracy enables you to do that. And we thought that, there are politicians, and they have their roles. And in Tunisia, we had also these women who were repressed. They came to the public scene and they became politicians, thanks to also the possibility for them to take part in positions of decision-making in all elected bodies, thanks to the parity law. So there's this law that imposes quotas on all political parties to include women in all electoral lists. So all of them, 50% of the lists have to be women. And then we went further, and women imposed that at least, one of every 2 lists, every other list has to have at its head a woman, so that they have, better chances of finding a position in parliament. So the idea was now that women are in power. Everyone was judging them. They arrived to power thanks to the quotas. Everyone was judging. They didn't arrive thanks to their competencies, although most of them were very competent, and the question is never asked when a man is actually doing, taking the same position. So for us, the idea was to study. In order to support women's rights, we have to actually support these women. It's not enough to push them to take positions and decision-making positions. We have to actually provide them with support, many kinds of support. So the Jasmine Foundation set itself to empower women who want to reach the position, so to learn how to be able to take positions of leadership, so to support them to take these positions. But once they are in these positions, we studied how much they are taking part in real decision making. What are the conditions that are helping them actually take an active role in participating in decision making? What are the policy areas where we are actually going to them for, we notice that usually we consider that their place is in family and children and, and those women issues, rather than being hard policy in terms of, budgets, in terms of security issues and other issues. So the idea was to actually study and analyze the obstacles to the active, contribution of women in decision making, and bring in actually everything that is needed. Probably I will have later more time to give you details about it. Yes, I will be asking more.
You already get into the details, but I will be asking more.
Yeah, and how actually we came to support them. Another thing was it is very important for women, if they want to actually achieve durable gains for the women equality, to be able to work across ideological boundaries. So one of our objectives was to create platforms where women who are, from faith-based, movements and from secular movements to come together and work together. And that was the reason why we were able to go further in imposing not just quotas, but also parity, absolute parity.
Thank you, Hocam. I will be coming with the other questions more deeply in the, let's say, experience and practices, because I know you have also researchers You have also different kind of points. Okay, but I want to also like change the discipline a bit as well, and it's like combination with civil society, with Dr. El-Emadi. Actually, like within this Afghanistan and Tunisia discussion, I already heard so much that actually the heritage, the cultural, let's say, heritage was already there for women to be in the public sphere or to like do something about their rights always. But some different kind of articulation of powers or different kind of articulation of like systems and states with modernism, with secularism, with different kind of isms, like put women in a different position and idealize one woman kind of forms. That's why the other women couldn't get involved with this kind of issues. But I think the cultural heritages are already in families and in different, more local, micro-level experiences. That's why Dr. El-Emadi will be saying so much about this, because actually she's working on family counseling. And could you please talk about the Doha International Family Institute in relation to your in relation to your works on improving the position of familial and social settings and the balance between family and society, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to give me this chance to talk today in very important conference and session. For me, I have a presentation, but to be honest with you, as a researcher and family therapist, I did my research yesterday on you all. And I understand from you, this is exactly your situation is my presentation. I saw many powerful, yeah.
Okay.
This one or this one? Okay. Okay. So I saw many powerful women, most of you, in very good majors. They studied abroad everywhere. At the same time, as a family therapist, when I ask them about their family, they are very proud and they have the responsibility and they're taking care of them. So your major, your work didn't stop you in taking care of your family, and taking care of your family didn't stop you in doing your work and support your country. So I'm proud to be with you all. So you are an example of what we are doing and what policy we are asking for. Something, so thank you for the Turkish woman, yani, really. If I will talk about why we choose like empowering women in the family context, in woman as a subject in this session, because woman, it's very important in her family. And without woman in the family, important of woman, we will not have family, the basic institute in the society, so we will not have society. So it's very important to look at her there. I think yesterday's speech, they said everything, from the president, from the minister of family, they focus on how important to focus in the policies that support women within her family. And this is what exactly DFI, Doha International Family Institution, do to different research, policy-oriented research, to strengthen Arab family, and we are a global best practice entity, support all the countries to take this initiative and to support family, and we call ourselves feminist, because we are like empowering family more, and we feel that when we empower family, we empower all the society. So from this perspective, as a feminism, we like explain exactly, like I want to go with my personal like story, And this, when I prepared this, I was proud, but this is exactly your story. It's not my story. This is exactly, maybe you have better story even here. I grew up in a family with 9 girls, 2 boys, and my father and mother, which is big family, they used to take care of all of us, boy or girl, and focus and study what we will achieve, what we are our goal. So I finished my study, my sister did the same, my brother did the same, but maybe as girls, we achieved to finish master and PhD, while my brothers didn't do that. They finished undergraduate and they start to work. Our position as a female is higher than them. So that means the policy, there is no problem in the policy. I started to work in addiction, which is the first Qatari woman work with addicts people. And I used to face some stigma in that from the society, but the policy in our society and the people who I work with, they empowered us and they encouraged me exactly to do everything I can and to finish my study abroad and to focus in that. I remember that the previous Prime Minister, he used to call me Iron Woman, because working with addicts in this culture with like all these challenges was something they were already proud of. I'm not the best psychologist in Qatar, but I have the policy that supported me in my country, and I have family that they supported me to do this. While my friends, they have the same support, they are better than me in their work, but their family didn't support them, so they didn't achieve what I achieved. And this is what I used to compare, and that's why when I worked in Doha International Family Institution, I used to focus in the policies that support family to encourage their children. So we focused on parenting, we focus on different programs that support these, all members of the family to like achieve their goal for the best of society. I can give like example of some of these like ideas or our philosophy in that, like feminism, already observed feminism, pro-elderly, pro-children, pro-all family members. For example, I will talk about social protection policies. UNICEF, they focus on child-sensitive social protection, secure basic incomes and reduce risk for children, and extreme poverty, and takes into account the voice and views of children and their caregiver. But older persons are left behind. So it is not like accounting all the members of the family. UN Women, they focus on gender responsive social protection, benefits women by responding to their rights and needs. A well-designed social protection system can narrow gender gaps in poverty rates, enhance women's income security and access to personal income, and provide a lifeline for poor women, especially single mothers. Men, children, and older persons are given less attention. We will come to the time that even men will ask for their right, because many things, when we focus in women, we forget other part of the family which they already have a right and they ask for it. DFI and UN ISQA, we focus here in family-focused social protection, which is built a social protection floor that ensure all children, women, men, and older persons have the support they need to manage the challenges they face along the path of life, so no one left behind. And this is what already they say it in their SDGs. The aim of SDGs, no one left behind. So if we will look at every part alone, we cannot help all. If we will focus here, I have some, I don't know if there is a time for that, but I have some evidence shows that married tied to longer lifespan. So married women had a death rate 2.5 times lower than widows. So please, everyone has to get married. so 569 per 100,000 for married women and 1,482 for widows. And you can see other results here. And another study examined the relationship between the age and marital status. The finding concluded that married men and women had a longer total life expectancy and active life expectancy than unmarried men and women. For example, at 65 years, total life expectancy for married women was 21 years longer than unmarried women, and active life expectancy for married women as 13 years longer than unmarried women. So married is even healthier than unmarried. In a longitudinal study that examined the impact of marriage on mental health, the result indicated that young adults who get and stay married have higher levels of well-being than those who remain single. Women who become married report fewer depression and mental health diseases. So there is also a best practice. I don't know if I have a time or
if you can finalize it, will be better for this question, no because problem. I will be asking more.
Sorry, because I prepared a presentation.
Yeah,
so
I know. Yeah. But I will be opening some part of the presentation with the other questions.
You very much. Thank
okay. I mean, but actually, it was a good introduction to understand that what kind of disciplinary involvement you have through psychology into family to let's say, develop and to support from micro level. That's why it is very much important, because most of the state policies are maybe failing in applications because of this. They are not engaged with this local meanings and local understanding so much. That's why my question will be again with Fatima Gailani to ask how to deal with this state let's say, authorities to discuss about this micro-level women issues. What I mean, you were experiencing it so much, and you were also a president of Afghan Red Crescent Society for a long time, and you are still board member, as far as I know. And what were the key elements of successful negotiation in such a sensitive and very fragile political orders? And actually, what is the role of being a woman within this order to negotiate?
What an easy question.
Oh, good. Because we need the answers.
Well, it just happened in my life that every job I took was in the men's field. It was maybe a coincidence, but probably it was because where I was born. In our society, where you are born, you have a choice to be a spoiled child, a spoiled girl. Just look for someone nice to come and marry you because you're a daughter of someone important. Or you take it extremely seriously and you owe it to other women, an open door for others. I did the second. Not so much my own doing, but it has a small story. When the Soviet invasion happened, when jihad started against Soviet Union, I was about to start my PhD in Cambridge. And I was accepted. I was quite looking forward to it. My father happened to travel to London at that time, and with great excitement, I say that I'm going to do my PhD. He said that, well, actually, I have something much more important for you to do. What could be much more important than my PhD, for God's sake? Say that, look, The jihad arena, the jihad movement has started, and it's totally men's world. And all the achievement for women will close on women. The door will close for women. I ask you to come enter politics, and I cannot keep that door open with other people's daughters. I have to do it with you and do it. At that time, I did it because I knew that my father knows the best. But today, this is what made me Fatma Gailani different from others. Because that was the most difficult thing I did. Absolutely the most difficult thing to do. But to have the right name, a religious name, and all that, this did help. When I became in the humanitarian field, which was the Afghan Red Crescent Society, I mean, I could count women with my fingers. And I was shocked that even women volunteers were not counted. So then I realized that no, this is a change that I could bring, which thankfully I did, and very quickly our Red Crescent, the Kizilai of Afghanistan, was announced one of the best 15 Kizilais in the world, which was a fantastic achievement. Then it happened that I was a commissioner in the Constitution. There, my work really affected women. Why? Because at the age of 40, when the civil war started in Afghanistan, I realized that it is not enough that I know about the rituals of Islam. I have to go and study what is exactly my right. How could I defend it? I studied Islamic jurisprudence and Islamic studies under Allah yarhamu, the Sheikh Dr. Zaki Badawi, which was one of the old Ikhwans, and also my professor of fiqh, the jurisprudence, was Dr. Jamal Mun'ab, which later became the chief of staff of Sheikh Tantawi in Al-Azhar. That opened the door for me. Then I knew how to defend. And today, a defender of not just women's rights, but human rights, and a voice of people, voice of minority. This is also not a women's only field. But it helps women to enter that field and much more successful than those of men.
Thank you very much. Actually, I think you were like also explaining that how we even begin with like the practices of women, then we are also reaching the human right itself, because this is all very intertwined and connected in so many ways. And you were like also having different contexts, and your family was also effective. And I will be asking as a further question that how your agency and the agency of Afghanistan Women has been represented within it. But I mean, before that, I want to hear from Tasnim Hojam a bit like let's say, like as an academician, but having your background in Canada, I will be asking also, having your civil society experiences in Tunisia as well. What do you think about, like, as a researcher and as a civil society, like founder, what you can say about the practices and experience of women within this colonial context of Tunisia? Because you already began a bit when you are talking about Jasmine Foundation, but what do you think? What kind of like very dominant cultural codes are affecting you to work on Tunisia?
It's a very long story.
Okay. Please keep it short, Hojam. But
well, I think there are many sides. Probably you noticed that I have spent as much time in my life in the Western world, in Canada, as I spent time in Tunisia. So oftentimes I wondered what that makes me. And one part of, defining my identity was, to be a woman, to, count on my own competencies, and to question these, codes. Yeah. So your question is at the center of what I am, actually. This is why it's so hard. So, those codes, I think, that I have since I was, a young girl, I think I had to come to terms with modernity and modernization. So I came from a family exactly like Dr.
I'm just Fatima, not
Fatima has told us. So from a family who has given me a religious education, so every day before going to school, we memorize Quran, but never memorizing without understanding each verse. The reason for it is that my father is a philosophy professor. So I was, all the time thinking about, our quality as humans and these ideas of justice. So for me, going to school, I had to have a fight on two fronts. The first front was, of course, those ideas that thought that being, from a religious family is something that makes me a backward, coming from a backward environment. And on the other front is, fighting the religious education at school.
Yes.
So I remember that I was the person, having more discussions with the professors. So this idea, this also old teachings of religion, and that are not attached to the maqasid of religion, to the understanding of the purposes of belief in this world, and also the understanding that prevents you from interacting with conditions around you and being active as a woman. So believing in my deep value as a human being, and in that I am a dignified human person. So it was very important for me when I was at school to prove that I am, at the same time, I very much, live up to those standards. So keep standards of excellence in terms of, academic achievement, showing that women are capable and that they're clever enough to achieve high standard results in all fields. Also having these deep discussions about religion with my friends, with, Tunisia was undergoing a forced modernization. So we had discussions, and this modernization was pitting itself against the local culture. So it was deeply divisive. People did not agree on what, religion said, on what human rights said.
It creates a new culture.
Exactly. So these discussions happened continuously, and there was this political strife also for the culture of human rights. So I understood very early on that there could be no women's rights without democratic rights. So this I understood very early on. The reason for it is that my father at one point was put in prison, and the result of that, just because he expressed criticism towards power. The other side is that I suffered from that. So having always the highest standards of achievement. So each year I got the highest prizes in my town and in my country. So those specific years when my father was in prison, I was prevented from getting my prizes. So that made me understand that we cannot separate both. We cannot separate. So I suffered not because of my opinions, but because of the opinions of someone else. Because dictatorship, because this, absolutist understanding of modernity did not accept any type of differences of criticism, did not accept the local culture. And somehow we were continuing not the colonization of our space, our national space, but it was the colonization of minds. And we were not supposed to develop our own modernity or our own path towards modernity. So this was the center of my attention. My objective was to understand, where does this understanding of modernity, this absolutist drive in modernity come from? So I devoted my time later on, rather than studying mathematics and other topics, I studied sociology. And my main topic was understanding modernity. So when I went to Canada to study, I said, I'm not going to study Muslim women. I'm not an informant for my culture. I'm not a KI, a key informant. So I have the opportunity of doing what the Moroccan philosopher did, Muhammad Abd al-Jabri, of analyzing, dissecting the modern mind and the modern philosophy and modern history and society. So at the intersection of historical study, philosophical study and sociological critique, I try to understand the West and the attitude of the West towards Muslims, toward Muslim women, and this inability of the university and my host culture to see me, because I continue to be the best at what I am doing. And the problem, and it was always very important to build that position for myself and impose myself and show that Muslim women are not weak, they're not submissive. No one had imposed hijab on me.
You were practicing itself that you're a subject.
Absolutely, exactly.
Okay,
so it was, I was proactively doing that. I was also involved on my campus on all students, so I refused to stay in a ghetto. I was involved in student struggles. And later as a mother, I was also the head of the parents committee. So always when there's a fight, I am there.
Okay.
So it was very hard actually. So I was quite, assertive about it. So that helped me, understand that for women it's very important to be proactive and not to isolate themselves and to engage, let's say in Tunisia or in anywhere in the world. Okay. So rather than waiting for your rights to be given to you, go and exercise your freedom and take the space and impose yourselves. That's the only way to enjoy rights.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, because I have to intervene because maybe our audience and anybody from international kind of let's say countries are maybe sensing that we have several common things for Tunisia and Turkey in somehow actually, because we are also having different kind of cultural codes to be a religious background and a veiled woman, etc. And then how you just have to get involved and have your space in public actually. And I think it was very good to say that how you engage with public space was you were not trying to impose through different kind of things, but as you are as an actor, and maybe, let's say, affect the culture within itself in a different way with creating new knowledge about the culture of Muslimness, the culture of Islam. I mean, this is very much important because then you can have a communication point, I guess. And here, that's why I want to ask about the feminism. I mean, maybe if we can have the slides, you can show it again, because actually Dr. El Hamadi was tackling an important question we are also facing in maybe Tunisia and in Turkey for working on women. Because when we are saying family, when we are working on women, this is also so much criticized and discussed, within certain feminist circles or within certain modernized or secularized cultures, saying that, are you objectifying women? Or are you saying that woman is not a subject, but the importance is the family? This is also related with the nation-state understanding, but as a psychologist and as a counselor and very expert on this, what do you want to say? And I mean, how you come up with a kind of alternative terminology, feminism for this?
Thank you for this question. The problem is, the challenges, always we follow some policies from outside this region and without thinking of the rich of our culture. I liked Fatma, how she studied the fact I need my rights in Islam. I have many rights. The country didn't give it to me. Still, in Qatar, I don't know in other, but still there is many rights for women. In Islam, we didn't take it. So, because we focused in what Western asking for, and we asking what they want for their woman, we forgot our rights in Islam. Because Islam brought the many, I will say, policies for women, to support women, and to make her like a queen in her family. But little by little, I feel that we lost this. Because we are thinking as a woman, taking care of ourselves, to take our rights, to live without any help of others. This has brought a problem. What is the challenges as a Doha International Family Institution face, that there is no research shows here in the region how women suffer when she's not with the family. While there is research in Western societies explaining that. Let me say some of the evidence. Like women in families face a lower risk of poverty. Like female-headed householders are more than twice as likely as all USA householders to face poverty, 27.9% vs 12.3%. So see how, like their research shows that woman to be in the family. That's why we want this as a feminist. Yeah. Marriage couples typically have both higher income and greater wealth than unmarried. Okay? Research suggested that dual earner families need about 35% more income to have the same standard of living as families with one spouse. So all these like shows how important to strengthen women in her family. In another study by combining divorce indicators and trends in the USA, elderly divorced women are 5 times likely to be poor than elderly married women. This was the finding by a recent study in 2021 on understanding poverty among elderly divorced women by University of Michigan. So see how this research shows this. One of the like recent, we as a DP went to present in even al-manakh, I forgot it, I forget the word in English. Like even when there is divorce cases, the percentage shows that we, with the divorce cases, we use more electricity, more water, and this put a pressure on the country and the environment. Sorry, like the environment, conference. So even with the society and the environment, we will put the family together. We will use less what is against the environment,
energy sources
like energy
as well.
and
Even,
resources.
yes, you are right. I mean, it's like you are saying.
So feminism is supporting in everywhere.
Okay.
In the parenting, I need my father and mother. What is the life of single mother that we're supporting her with different policy? At the end, the children need father.
Yeah.
The parenting, you cannot do it. There is something missing. That's why, as a psychologist, I can see it with the drug addicts.
Yes.
When they born or
in the rehabilitation
like
process,
that,
yeah.
with divorce cases, with a single mother, with a single father, they have more problem than the children that they grow up in the family.
Thank you very much, because it's a very important discussion in terms of cultural codes as well, because as we said, certain different political mechanisms, social and like economic mechanisms are like imposing certain cultural codes that we are thinking women with independence as a freedomness. But maybe independence can have different kind of connotations, because as you said, women can be much more stronger in a family, or every member of a family can be very much more stronger. But of course, maybe we have to tackle that, what is the family here? I mean, how much it should include the equality and the other rights issues. I mean, that's why maybe within this discussions, I want to ask a general questions for all of you. I mean, it will be related most of the time, of course, your own experiences, but maybe we can begin with like Fatima Gailani again. Let's say what we can say about the, let's say, as we said, we are creating, the system is, or the state, or certain authorities are creating certain cultural codes, even for women. And I mean, how it is hard to work in this like male-dominant sometimes environments or power-based environments to show your agency, but in different cultures as well, because we know that now we are talking about different cultures, different women, different families. And I mean, what do you think to, let's say, create a kind of connection between them and to talk about, as a civil society, let's say, member, like for an inclusive, more and more inclusive, let's say, society as agents, as women?
This is a very important question, because yesterday some of the speakers did speak about it. The state of uncertainty is the most difficult state. This is what's happening today in Afghanistan, a country without a constitution, a country that in one province girls go to school without any problem because that specific governor wants it so. In another, in the capital, women are not supposed to go to even secondary school. Then women can go to university. That state of uncertainty, which is very dangerous for all human beings, especially dangerous for women. Because don't forget, whether it's a war, whether it's uncertainty, anything, women are the first victims. That's why a constitution is the best base. There are times that the constitution is not obeyed properly, but at least you have something to, yes, a good base to go forward and slowly to push for something which is there, which is accepted, which is sealed, to be implemented. When you have a constitution, at my own experience, do you think those rights, those quota system and all that we put for women, that women be equal to men, that all the minorities of Afghanistan would be fair, that was not easy. We had resistance, but a proper understanding of the situation and explaining and taking time, and not show it, as you said, as the foreign thing. It's not from outside. This is something which comes from within. And you have to have support with the society. Then, of course, comes the will of the government. If the will of the government is not there, if the leader doesn't want this to happen, you have the best law, you have the best environment, it's not going to happen properly. That's why it's a combination of all this that you have to put it together.
Thank you very much. Tasnim Hocam, maybe you can also contribute to it through the Tunisian kind of perspective.
I think that, you know, the issue of laws and constitutions are, you know, central. They're very important. So we will never stress enough the importance of a legal framework. However, laws are not sufficient. Laws don't create social practices. So we have to actually help create, educate the younger generations, educate men and women, and prepare everyone to change their behaviors, their attitudes, and understand how, you know, rights actually are not against one part of society or for one part of society against the other. So I think that it's very important. The conditions of agency is something that we prepare through law. We prepare also through training, through, you know, creating a network also. I'm very strategic about this. So, for example, I can tell you about the experience that the fact that the quota system in Tunisia gave us excellent results. Gave us, for the first time, we had 47% of the composition of local councils, municipalities, were women. A number that we didn't have in France, we didn't have any in any other European country at the same time. Also, the struggle for women, for women's rights, they were a reality. However, we have seen many people doubting it, questioning, mocking, you know, quotas, and mocking those rights, and mocking women while they are doing their work, and you know, questioning what they're wearing, how they look, how they're talking, whether they speak French well because it's a necessity in Tunisia, etc. So. We were there to support them individually. So it's not enough, actually, to strengthen women agency to just create laws. You know, agency, you know, law is only the structure, but the content, the substance of agency has to come through active support. So this is what we wanted actually to do. This is what we do by showing the example also. Our organization gives the chance to women to take leadership positions, but learn and make mistakes. And it's okay if they cannot do that in civil society. They're not prepared for, political leadership positions. Also, create a solidarity network. Women need to come when they are in decision-making processes, etc. It's like they have to become men. And they doubt themselves. Yeah. And if they don't correspond to that ideal, they start, not being comfortable. So you need to be double, hardworking, and you need to show that you are excellent. And I always tell, do we have to be excellent to be accepted in our positions? No.
Bringing the standards of excellence.
Actually, yeah, with maturity and age, I understood that we have to accept that we have the right as citizens to assume such positions and to have agency, and we have the right to make mistakes also. Okay. So help women be more merciful with themselves and be less, and I always tell them, the recipe for failure is perfectionism. Yeah. So if you
are saying this.
So actually, we are mothers. We are. You are a decision maker, whether in an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur, or you are a decision maker in a political environment, or you are an academic. Everyone will expect the best of you. You have to take a step back. And for me, was the 100% was keeping everything rolling. And
thank you very much. Hocam, this is very much important to understand the cultural codes discussion, because these are in our daily life. We are surrounded by them to be the excellent mother, to be the excellent academician, to be the
exactly.
This is most of the time we are also imposing to ourselves. Yeah. To be
it is a human need impossible to be excellent in everything. So you have to be quite strategic about it. Choose your priorities. So have a priority list. Choose your battles. Focus on what is your added value, and then invest in that.
And maybe we have to question that where the imposition of this kind of excellencies or roles are coming.
But we must not forget the role of media.
Yeah. Thank you, because this is one of the questions to you.
The media is sometimes brainwash.
Yeah, I will come to this because one of our audience already asked the question for you. Maybe we can have the last comments about this issue, because it's very much important that I think we are understanding the main culture of being a Muslim, etc. But even this can have different kind of experiences in different contexts. Or in this context, are we thinking about our agency, and are we already, let's say, inclusive enough? This is also my question most of the times. Even if you are talking about a Muslim woman, are you inclusive enough for all Muslim women or all the other women as well? This is very much important, please.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues and everything, but the important thing, to can achieve all this, we need research. The problem or the challenges, our researchers follow what even Western tell us, their question. How many violence women, how many women sitting at home? But this woman who's sitting at home, what she's doing for her family, because her husband is spending and taking care of them, she wants to stay at home. While the woman there staying at home, nobody talking about her. So research for a new generation, I will think about our culture. A new generation, they want to see evidence. They want to see a number, so they can decide what to do. So even any education will do. In the media, for family, for women, for her rights, it has to be with evidence. I will give you example on Qatar Foundation. We implement the work-family balance, like maternity leave, paternity leave, which is supporting women to do her work and at the same. But we want to advocate for it to the whole country and to the Arab region, so they can implement this policy even in the government sector. What we did, we advocating for this policy, and some policy they implemented already, but we did a research and cost-benefit analysis. So the country government wants to see what it will cost them. So this will attract them to attract them, encourage them to do this policy, we have to give them evidence that support them. So this research, as a Doha International Family Institution, we cannot see it in our region. It's less than, when we want to talk about even evidence that support women within her family, we have to bring evidence from outside.
Yes.
Yeah, and so research is very important. A new generation wants to hear numbers. Yeah.
We have to actually, I guess, to look at in a holistic version like that, what kind of elements are involved in woman's life, man's life, and family's life, I guess. Thank you very much, all of you, for all very valuable answers. But we need other answers because we have so many questions from the audience. I will try to be summarizing them and bring you each of you actually. So many questions to you, Fatima Gailani, actually, but I will be trying to summarize. The first discussion is a bit about the U.S. intervention and how the idea of freedom or agency of women has been affected with this, and then when they just left Afghanistan, what happened? I mean, and it was the question directly in this way that are they more free than ever, or were they free before? And in relation to this, there is also a question that what you think with this experience about the women in Turkey, if you are a bit engaged. And lastly, the media question, that how you think about the representation of Afghan women in media, in specifically, but in general, the women representations in media.
Okay. I have to jump from branch to branch, well, but I will do it.
I was summarizing this all.
This is not the first time that America let down Afghanistan. As I said earlier, Afghanistan is victim of the Cold War. Yeah. Afghanistan had nothing to do with 11th September event. It was those people who were brought to Afghanistan to fight. I remember very well, Allah yarhamu, King Hussein, my father, and some of other leaders, they were trying very hard to convince the Americans that bringing the Arabs, the Chechens, the Kurds, or whoever who were not very happy in their own country, bring them here to fight. Because one thing that we were not lacking, and it was fighters. So why would you bring these people, and what would we do with them? Unfortunately, that ended to the creation of Al-Qaeda. And who was victim? Again, Afghanistan. They did something, Afghanistan was suffering. What I'm trying to say is that the people of Afghanistan, if they don't get up and say that, yes, the world owes it to us to fix what they have ruined in Afghanistan, but in our own term. I remember very well, I was a member in the Bonn conference when the new Afghanistan was born after the first era of Taliban. My first question was, where are Taliban? Everyone said, why should they be there? I said, then we are making peace with whom? With us, with ourselves? So something artificial was created there that couldn't sustain. And I remember very well that the sentence I used at that time, I said, Taliban are not piece of ice that you put it on a hot stone and hope to viper and disappear. They have tribes, they are Afghans. But after the constitution, when I went, I was responsible for 5 provinces. And you know Afghanistan is all mountains. So I was going from district to district. And when I saw the enthusiasm in the new constitution, I thought the first step would be to reconcile with the Taliban. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then, if we value the 20 years of the last 20 years from the end of Taliban till the beginning of Taliban, we have to be very fair. Regarding education for men and women, it was phenomenal. And again, Turkey had a very important role to play. In the last 2 cabinets, half of the cabinet members were people who were educated either here or in the institution, Turkish institution in Afghanistan, and many abroad. I'll give you one example of our last ambassador to the UN and Washington, Adalet, whom I am very, very proud of. When I went to Afghanistan, she was a teenager, and I recruited her among other young people to go and do her further education in the US. Today, she is no less than any ambassador from any country, from A to Z. That kind of education came. It is true that education of women in Afghanistan started 101 years ago, but in the last 20 years, never in the history of Afghanistan we had so many well-educated, properly educated Afghan women. So it had goods and bads.
Yes.
But then it was an artificial environment. As you saw, it didn't continue. The role of the media, whether it is in Afghanistan or not, is both sides. It has its goods and bads. But what scares me a lot is social media. When they make up their mind about something, then they portray it as if it is the reality.
Yeah.
Today, those women who have run away from Afghanistan, including myself, if we talk what we think is good for women inside Afghanistan, that will be extremely dangerous. We have to listen to majority who are still in Afghanistan. The media has to listen to them, and then we decide for the future of women in Afghanistan, really.
I think we are all supporting this idea because this is the most common, let's say, problem we have for women and men and all social policy making. Because media is affecting everything, and when we just get involved with these solutions, this is always one cultural code or one kind of perspective is dominant. The others are not there. That's why thank you very much for this actually contribution. And for Tasnim Hocam, I have a question about the Tunisian future. There was a question that how you are seeing Tunisia, for example, after 10 years, how it will be in a situation.
Well, this is a political question.
I don't know. Actually, you can.
I have many.
As a sociologist, you can talk about sociologically as well.
Well, actually, the question of about the future is a very important one in the time we are right now. You know that we're living in an era of risks, instabilities, incertitudes. And part of this, actually, I always tell also my collaborators that incertitudes for populations who are suffering from imperialism is actually an opportunity and not a problem. So part of empowering people and agency is actually to learn not to see only the obstacles, but to train yourself to always see the opportunities. So our era is actually ripe with opportunities. We're seeing the crumbling of an old world, actually, that was created, after the Second World War, and it's quite geostrategic if you don't want to get into details. I will be just telling you that the balances we had, since that time are just being, changed. So what happens is that for all marginalized communities, for those who are left off, for those who belong to the underside of the main narrative, this is actually an opportunity. And we have to train ourselves to learn to do that. When people tell you, well, this is a bad time, for whom? So as a sociologist, I always ask this question, which takes you back to the power issue. For whom? Which diagnosis? The media diagnosis, when it tells you that, this is bad, this is good for whom? So this is very important, asking the question for whom. So this time is actually ripe with opportunities. So Tunisia, if you ask me about Tunisia, but also the region, was, for 10 years, it was undergoing, a democratic transition. It was hailed as the only successful experience. One of the key of successes was the ability of people to sit together and rather than have a dialogue with arms and killing each other, have a civilized dialogue where everything is put on the table. We're not civil with each other. We can actually, be in conflict. We accept conflict, and we accept that democracy is actually the way of, rather than putting conflicts and problems and issues under the mat, we put them on the table. And the fact-based approach here mentioned by my colleague here is very important. Bring in research, bring in data. We have experienced then that, the only way to go forward in a dialogue is to bring data on the table. So data actually makes everyone agree on the necessities, on the solutions to go forward. So this is what we're encouraging the new generations to do, the women, young people, those who are actually, they are usually the innovators. They adopt changes more quickly. We're encouraging them to be present, to defend rights, to defend democracy, and to understand that democracy, yes, today, Tunisia democracy is under threat. And democracy is under threat everywhere in many places in the world because of the rise of authoritarianism and because we have let some powers actually, play with with the game, and we forgot that what happened in Syria, what happened because we have let some powers destroy democracy there. So at the end of the day, we have to understand that it's a long struggle. Democracy is a struggle, and the fact that it is today a struggle, even in Western established, more mature democracies, I would say. We should not blame ourselves in young Tunisia, for example, for the fact that today democracy is threatened. So the 10 years, what would they be? They will be what we will make with them today. So today, if we choose to be active, proactive in designing the future, because everyone is working towards that. It's about defining the future. How will the future will be? This is a major conflict today. Will democracy, the human rights, women's rights, win, or will the authoritarian model of, putting, human rights on the side, talking about, conservatism as, something that is actually equal to the extreme right. So for the new generation, just one word, Nursem, I want to highlight the fact that there is a growing, there's a rise of extreme right discourse that is against human rights, that is against also women's rights. It's actually blaming women for everything that is not going on very well in society. And this is happening in Western democracies, and unfortunately, many young people from our societies are listening to this. I think it's our responsibility to create an inclusive discourse where we don't sideline men, we don't sideline masculinity, we take into account the changing demographics of our society, and where we have a discourse for women's rights and for democracy that go hand in hand together, and that are inclusive of social and economic rights and other, marginalized communities in our societies. Or it's the authoritarian actually discourse that will win.
Okay, thank you, Hocam, because this is also another discussion that we have certain questioning about certain dominant hegemonic cultural codes, but sometimes we are maybe not thinking about the positive and negative sides, as it is the case for Afghanistan, and how the cold intervention is affecting the education positively, and sometimes maybe democracy in different kind of senses can affect women's life positively, but we have to see the negative or suppression kind of points, and let's say create alternatives to have an inclusionary understanding. And the last question, maybe quickly coming to Dr. Al-Hamadi, about family, of course, because there was some questions that what were the most important problem you confronted in families in your studies, and what do you think the most important like thing to do with like work and labor and family balance? And in this specifically, maybe you can say, what do you think about the working woman and how it is affecting the children? This is the question. Very quickly, please, but I know that it's hard.
Because I'm a researcher, so always I like to speak about evidence. So I
know.
Because to speak general, this is it's not has any meaning. So our different research in Doha International Family Institution focus on what policy we want to implement. Then we do research to see this policy will support to implement it to strengthen family, and then we advocate for these policies to implement these policies in the country. So we did many research into work-family balance. And we advocating for maternity leave to be 19, which is, we have it in Qatar Foundation, but not in the government. We advocated for part-time job, and they implemented. Okay, there is pressure on that. Flexible working hours, they implemented during Ramadan, they tried it. But to encourage them more, so because I'm a psychologist, I have to understand the policy maker, how they think. So when it came to how much we will spend or we will lose in like this kind of policy, so I did this research related to the cost-benefit analysis, which is proved that no, you will get benefit from that. So that's why we work in this way. We work with the most difficulties that we're facing in GCC, especially the high rate of divorce. And the high rate of divorce, I think, with what we did, even we did a study for the challenges that all the 22 countries in Arab region face in 5 years of marriage, because we did a book also shows that the most percentage of divorce happened in the first 5 years. So we saw many challenges. No one of these challenges relate to work outside. It's more relationship. It's more not understanding each other. Communication, because there is no communication. There is many other issues relate to religion, relate to akhlaq, relate to bad behavior. So it's not work woman outside of the work. And again, what research shows that woman who's staying at home, it's taking care of her children more than woman who's working. There is no research shows that.
Thank you.
And I can see the cases that a woman at home, but she's in our culture leaving everything for the maid, and the maid harming the children, and then I can see this in the behavior of children when I treat them. So we need more research on that to prove that it's not the education. Now we have in Qatar, most of the women, it's a higher education. In higher education, more than men. The woman in the culture, in Arab culture, and I think also in your culture in the region, she used to work in the farm, and fishing, and taking care of children. Why now? If she will work, she will harm her children. This is not the right philosophy. I think that's why we need more evidence to show our policymaker that this is not the right. We need I need as a woman my right, because I'm bringing the children, that policy supporting me for maternity leave, even for paternity leave. We tried it at Qatar Foundation. Now the husband take care of their wives more than before, because the idea of having this paternity leave gives them responsibility more than before.
Thank you very much, because we came with this topic at the end, but this is very much important because this is also related with cultural codes. I will bring it to the conference and summit, because I mean, we are talking about when a woman is working on the farm, it's okay, but when it's a professional job, like the divorce is related with it as a cause and effect relationship. And as a researcher, I mean, doctor is also showing that we need to see that what other variables are included, what are like other effects are included. That's why we shouldn't like go with this dominant cultural code that when women are outside, this is a problem. Or when women are outside, they are not caring their children. This is a very important case, and the contribution for research. Because, you know, convincing the policymakers are much more important through research and evidences. Thank you very much for all the like very insightful and deep discussion. And I hope that you also enjoy it. And as I said, it was our honor and pleasure to have this session because it was a product of our passion or, let's say, like desire to work on women's rights. Thank you very much, and inshallah we will see each other in the other sessions.